For as long as we've had them, our phones have been these incredible tools, right? But they've always had one major limitation. They were tied to the ground. If you didn't have a cell tower nearby, you were just out of luck. But in just the last few years, that fundamental rule has been completely broken. So let's dive into the surprising new conversation that's happening between the phone in your pocket and the thousands of satellites orbiting right above us.
Okay, first things first, we need to clear up a huge misconception. When you use Google Maps or Apple Maps, your phone is using GPS, so it has to be sending a signal up to those satellites, asking, hey, where am I, right? And the satellite looks down, sees you, and sends the answer back. I mean, it seems totally logical, but it's completely wrong.
I absolutely love this analogy from a discussion on Reddit. It just perfectly captures the truth about GPS. Think about it. A ship sees the light from a bunch of different lighthouses, and it uses their known positions to figure out its own location on a map. The ship never, ever sends a signal to the lighthouse, and for most of its history, your phone has worked the exact same way.
So if your phone isn't talking to space, what in the world is it doing? Well, it's listening. That's it. It's just a passive receiver in a one-way conversation that's been happening for decades. And the satellites themselves have no idea it's even happening.
You know, the concept is actually surprisingly simple. GPS satellites are basically like these cosmic clocks, constantly broadcasting a signal with just two little pieces of information, their ID and the exact time, down to the nanosecond. Your phone's GPS chip just listens for at least 4 of these signals. By comparing the tiny differences in when each one arrived, it can triangulate its own precise location. And the key thing to remember here is this: the satellites have no idea your phone is even there.
So for any real two-way communication, calls, texts, all your data, your phone has always been stuck in a world defined by ground-based infrastructure. It was an amazing world for sure, but it was a limited one. Let's take a quick look at how that terrestrial era played out.
Just look at this progression. I mean, we went from an 80-pound behemoth in a car trunk back in 1946 to the revolutionary iPhone in 2007. The technology advanced at this incredible pace, but the underlying principle, it stayed exactly the same. Whether it was that giant Dynatac brick phone in '83 or a super powerful smartphone in 2021, the moment you stepped outside the reach of a cell tower, your pocket supercomputer became, well, just a pocket computer. The connection to the world was just
And then, starting around 2022, everything changed. That one-way street suddenly became a two-way conversation. For the very first time, standard, off-the-shelf smartphones learned how to send a message back up to space.
And this slide, wow, it illustrates the scale of the change perfectly. On the left, you've got the old way, a dedicated, bulky, and really expensive satellite phone. But on the right, that's the new reality. That same core capability, the ability to send an SOS from literally anywhere, is now being integrated directly into the sleek phone you already own.
The technology making all this possible is called Direct-to-Cellular, or D2C, and you can think of it as satellites acting like cell towers in the sky. It's what allows the very same phone you use every single day to establish a direct link with the satellite in orbit, with no special equipment required at all.
This right here, this is the key breakthrough. For decades, the consensus was that a tiny phone battery and its little antenna could never shout loud enough to be heard by a satellite hundreds of miles away. It just wasn't possible. But a combination of new technologies finally cracked the code, turning what was basically science fiction into a feature on your phone.
So, who is building this new highway in the sky, and how on earth does it actually work? Well, this isn't just one company, it's a full-blown space race between the biggest names in tech and telecommunications.
This table shows you just how competitive this new frontier is. You can see Apple really kick things off with Globalstar. T-Mobile jumped in right after, partnering with SpaceX's massive Starlink constellation. And now, of course, AT&T and Verizon are getting in the game with their own partners. It is a mad dash to eliminate cellular dead zones forever.
So how did they solve that whisper in space problem? Well, it's a 3-part strategy. Pretty brilliant, actually. First, they launched thousands of satellites into what's called low Earth orbit, or LEO, which brings them much closer to us. Second, these satellites all talk to each other, creating this big mesh network up in space. But the real magic is step 3, a technique called multi-satellite MIMO. Just think of it like a group of people all cupping their ears to hear a really faint sound. Multiple satellites work together to act as one giant virtual antenna. And by combining their power, they can finally hear that faint whisper from your phone all the way down on the ground.
Now, while this all started with emergency SOS messages, that's just the beginning.
That's just the proof of concept. The ultimate goal is way more ambitious. We're moving toward a future where the line between sensing the world and communicating with it completely disappears.
The next big leap is a concept called ISAC. That's Integrated Sensing and Communications. Imagine a satellite network that doesn't just relay your texts and calls, but at the same time uses its signals to perform high-resolution radar sensing of the entire planet, all using the same hardware and the same signal. Two jobs at once.
This diagram gives us a glimpse of that incredibly busy future. Just look at everything happening here at once. A single integrated network is providing internet to a laptop, connecting smart cars to each other, guiding ships at sea, and gathering atmospheric data for weather prediction. All of it, simultaneously, from the exact same system.
And the applications? They're world-changing. This isn't just about convenience anymore. It's about building a more connected and responsive planet. We're talking about real-time air traffic management to make flying safer, tracking space debris to protect future missions, and providing the constant non-stop data stream that autonomous cars are going to need to operate everywhere.
So, what this all really amounts to is a fundamental shift. We are leaving behind a century of communication that was defined by the limits of the ground, and we're entering an era where your device is part of a global, integrated network that connects you from anywhere and senses everything.
And that brings us to the final, fascinating question. For all of human history, there have been places off the grid. What does it mean for society, for exploration, for safety, and for privacy when that concept simply ceases to exist? What happens when there are no more dead zones?